me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday. You know, we've just finished with the Oshu governorship election, and comments from across observers, even participants, NGOs, media commentators, is that the Oshu governorship election was a success, especially on the side of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, this afternoon, I'm going to be conversing on that success and how it can be extended to the 2023 election if the joker was technology. And I'm conversing this afternoon with a friend, a colleague in the media, in Inec, a personal friend, Andy Ezeani. Now, Andy Ezeani was the past head of publicity of Inec. He was former administrative secretary of Inec, Ebonyi State. He was former chief press secretary to the Inec chairman, former editor, Daily Champion, Sunday Champion, and a Fulbright scholar. Andy, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Chief. Good to be here.
And you heard what I said in respect of application of technology. The big joker for Inec in the Oshu governorship election seemed to have been technology. You've been there. Why did it take Inec this long to find its feet in the application of this kind of technology?
Well, thank you very much. I think it is not that it has taken it long. Actually, before you cultivate any product, I think you must have to, put it on the ground, have to prepare the ground. It has taken some time in coming, but it's not something that you could have overnight achieved this result. You can actually go back and say almost from the beginning, from the establishment of the commission, from the time it came on stream in 1999, I think there is a basic provision in the commission that every commission that has come had actually been happening on technology and incrementally adding on technology. So what had materialized now in Oshu, what has happened, and it's not even Oshu anyway, Oshu is just the latest, but if you go back in the last 3-4 elections that the commission has conducted in terms of the governorship elections, but there are many other elections that are not governorship elections that they have conducted in the last, since after 2019, you will notice that there had been a steady improvement in the conduct of elections, deriving essentially from technology use. And so it is just a materialization of what the commission has been working on over a long time. So it is not a question of why did it take you such a long time? It's a question of it is a process, it is a journey that had now culminated in what has happened in Oshu and what has been happening recently.
Now, Oshu was a simple governorship election. I hope I'm not downgraded it by saying simple. In 2023, it is going to be a massive task all over the country. How do you see this success now being extended, kind of extrapolation, and making it work in 2023?
It's good that you say that you don't want to downgrade it and say that simple governorship, because in the past, that simple governorship had also provided a whole lot of headache for the nation. But to come round to your question, actually, what happens is that what you are going to get in 2023 is a replication of the technology in one state is the technology that is used in another state all over the place. So it's not as if you use something in Oshu, and when it applies to 30 states or 36 states, it's going to be varied. No, it is the same standard. It's the same technology. It had been tested out and it had been prepared. So you can expect to a reasonable extent that the performance is going to be standard across the nation. And so you are going to have the same thing. The manpower will always be an issue, because in this case, you are going to stretch the manpower of the commission and the ad hoc staff that you are going to get. But basically, what the commission does is that you get the key staff of the commission, and then you get this ad hoc staff and train them. So you distribute this across the states. Definitely, it's going to have a minor impact, but the technology, once it is performing as optimum, And once you have the basic technical staff all over the place who you distribute across the states, I do expect that there will not be any variation, any difference in terms of the standard and in terms of the performance. No, I think it will be the same.
Both in Ekiti election and to some extent in this Osho election, something kept popping up: vote buying.
Yeah.
That is not essentially an Inec challenge, even though it impacts negatively on the election. Is there any way, is there any magic Inec can do, or this new technology can be applied to address that matter?
I frankly don't think there is much technology can do in this. I mean, what you are dealing with now actually is the problem of the political class. And there is a certain tendency towards criminality that keeps shifting base and shifting the structure in which it comes. You chase them away from hijacking results and then doing other kind of a thing. They keep moving and seeing what to do. So at the moment, they have actually run into this niche of
vote buying.
And there is not much you can do in terms of technology, because this is not a phenomenon. This is not something that happens in one spot. Sometimes you do vote buying can actually occur a day before or 2 days before or things like that. So you find it difficult actually to begin to have a situation where you track somebody and catch him in one place. Now, the thing that the commission can do, if you ask me, in terms of trying to help the situation, not that it will be the solution, is that in terms of one thing that happened in Ekiti, and a lot of people have not placed a lot of attention on that, but I think it was corrected in Osun, is that there is a provision on how and where you place your voting cubicle, so that when people get to vote, they actually vote in a situation where their privacy will be secured, and where all those who are around trying to look for where they voted will not have access to know how they voted. The commission had to take a certain step, very strict position in terms of making sure that the voting cubicle is placed in such a way that both the security agencies and all sorts of agents do not have any idea into where anybody goes there votes. Because what happened in Ekiti, from all indications and from all reports, is that people go, and after they have collected what pittance they were given, as they were coming to vote, it's almost like an exhibition. Somebody is looking for me to know that, look at where I'm voting, look at what you gave me, and I'm performing to that. But if somebody goes, yes, it is important for us to be sure that you are voting. That's where the structure, the architecture of the voting pattern, actually in the commission's manual, is that you place it in such a way that it will be in the open, but it will secure your privacy. So to that extent, nobody is going to come near enough to know whether the money you collected, you are justifying it. Because that question of catching you on collecting the money, that one is difficult for us to know what you can do about it. But if you go to the extent of saying, okay, I'll collect the money and vote as I want to do, let nobody now begin to catch you there and say, look, you did not deliver. So if we place it in such a situation, then the commission would have helped a situation where they will not know whether the people who collected their money are performing as they told them they were going to perform. These are simplistic. These are very simple aspects of the type of things they can do. But generally speaking, there's a limit to what the commission can do in terms of doing that. Yeah.
And just a few days back, I watched a documentary on what they call institutional vote buying, institutional election corruption in Nigeria, by which that documentary is accusing the ruling party of cornering 22 states which it controls at present and adding some weaker PDP states, where it is giving a new policy, a new financial policy, using the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to make people from now to be accessing certain amounts of money, 20,000, 10,000, just the same way in 2019, current vice president was in the markets giving out trader loan, trader money. There are fears that in addressing vote buying, how do you address institutional vote buying, because giving them now softens their heart to say, oh, this government is good, this party is good. Can we address it?
There are some problems, that we'll have to live with for quite some time. Basically, we have weak institutions. Basically, we have a very illiterate society that have been impoverished. When you have a combination of these things, you are likely going to have such factors as you are pointing out now becoming huge issues in the election. Now, I talk about institutions. Even in developed societies, we came out of a very turbulent election in the United States of America 2 years back. You know that election was saved at the end of it because the institutions were robust and strong. And so whatever the president was inclined to do, whatever his associates in the ruling party were inclined to do, the institutions stood up to them and they were able to save democracy. We have weak institutions here, whether you are talking about judiciary, whether you are talking about our security, whether you are talking about whatever you want to talk about, we have institutions that are malleable, they can easily be changed, they can easily be corralled by the ruling, the party or the government to go one way or the other. And to that extent, we are dealing with a problem that is quite difficult. If you have the security agencies standing on their own firm, owing their allegiance to the nation and not to individuals and to the government, it's a lot easier to contain some of these things. But if they owe their allegiance to individuals and to power and believe that, and not just that they believe, but in practical terms, these people can actually determine their professional, advancements one way or the other, then you have a problem, and that is what is happening here. Now, you have illiteracy, where people are living combined with poverty, both of them go together, where people have been impoverished, where people have had people that they elected, and for about 4 years, or in some instances 8 years, you know very well where you stand, you know how difficult life is, and then somebody comes on the eve of election and then probably gives you, let us say he even gives you 10,000 or 20,000, but you know that in many instances they are not even that kind and liberal. They give them 2,000, 3,000. And then somebody tells you that, hey, take this, and then that influences how you vote. That says something about the poverty of mentality. It says something about the poverty of your pocket. It says something about how you rate yourself. But that's where the country is at the moment. So you find out that, and interestingly and unfortunately, most of those who are enlightened, who are educated, who can resist these things, experience has shown that they are not often the people who vote more. It is these poor people actually who can easily be influenced that are the people who come out more, and then they are liable to be influenced. The elite and the ones who are capable of voting are somewhere pontificating and talking, and then they will not even come out to vote. Although we can say, yes, there have been an improvement, now, because if people are enlightened and educated, and if people are in a position to interrogate this new kindness of trying to empower them and trying to do humanitarian services in 1 week of the election, then invariably, questions are going to be raised. And again, still talking of institutions, you have your National Assembly. They cannot even raise questions about this. You have a situation now, if you go to developed societies, where people of the same party actually will question a certain move by the government and vote against it. But I do want to believe now that because many of them in the National Assembly have also lost their bid to come back, maybe within the little time that it left for them, maybe you can see them becoming radicals, and asking the question that ordinarily we expect them, they expect them to ask.
So Andy, I want to bring us back to technology. I hope you don't mind that. One of the challenges Nigeria's electoral process, especially on election day, has faced is the challenge of underage voting. States turning millions of people. And you watch in the social media, little children proudly showing off their voters' cards. And how can this, do you think really it's possible for technology to sieve between somebody underage and somebody of age?
I think it is possible for technology to do that, but the issue is, this technology, where we are at the moment, like I told you from the beginning, it is a journey, and then it has come to the point where it is now. Technology is capable of determining whether somebody is underage or at some point. It can be done. But at this point in time, can it do it by what they have there? I have my doubts. Where we are now with the BVAS, the bimodal voting accreditation system, we have now moved from checking the thumbprint, and now we are now using the facial. That is an improvement. That is something that leads you to another step. I do not have any doubt that in the near future, we'll be in a position where, at the moment, yes, you can establish that, but what's the time that is going to take you to actually address that kind of issue within the election period? So it is not as if technology cannot do it, but if at the moment we are trying to work within a time span of about 8 hours of voting and then trying to establish some of these things, we are dealing with a very difficult situation at this point in time. I must be frank to you. Yes, the Independent National Electoral Commission can tell you, yes, they can do this, the machine can do this, but in practicality, this is actually a very difficult time. Everything that goes into conducting an election now and coming out with a tidy election is almost like that commission is combating all sorts of devils on the other side. The political class and the politicians, who are the people who are doing all this, are people who are actually placing one impediment after another impediment before the commission in terms of delivering elections. And then again, we have a society where we are still dealing with a whole lot of ethnic issues, a whole lot of factors that have been politicized. If not, I don't know how states, how governments, governors, people who actually you expect a certain level of integrity and honesty are going to be throwing in chaps that you see them. It's not even hidden. It's just that you see them. Before, I had confronted a situation where you see somebody and you say, this one is underage. They said, it's just that he has a stunted growth. But in those ones, you find people who probably, he may be stunted if he's that short and look bulky. But in many instances now, you see pure kids that that there is no way they will be above 13 years, above 12 years. And they're coming there. And people are allowing them. And I tell you that in many of the states you are talking about, if you don't get to register them, the people who are going to lead uprising against the commission and registration are adults in prime positions who you expect to have a high level of integrity. We have problem in the country.
Now, and they're talking about some opposition to Inec refining the process and sieving out these underage voters. Does Inec have both the capacity and legal backing to say, look, you've looked at this child, you cannot vote?
It has the capacity. It is in a position to do that. It's a question of the commission actually now trying to manage a whole lot of social dynamics. That is actually what I'm talking about. But in terms of if the commission rejects you, the provision is that invariably you are going to, you can be required to go and get your birth certificate. You can be required to go back and get a document that supports that. The commission is placed in a position, and yes, there is a provision that allows the commission to reject anybody that comes to register that is not up to that, and you are going to go and bring an evidence. But we are dealing with a situation where we are talking about people who are 12 years, 10 years we are talking about. You tell them to go back and they tell you that there is no birth registration in their place when they were born 10 years back. You call their mother, who may also be an illiterate, and they get you confused and get themselves confused and get the system muddled up, and everything, there is confusion.
And there's a story that Inec, I must admit, has denied. But it's not going away. And that is that Inec did some kind of registration across Nigerian border in Niger. Inec had denied it. But it's not going away because at election period like this, there's all manner of movement. And non-real Nigerians get to vote. Two problems there. Is it Inec's responsibility to manage that cross-border movement? And the challenge of diaspora voting, because that is a mini diaspora voting, though illegal. How does Inec address the two challenges?
I have been having problem actually in recent times, in the past few months that I left Inec, I have actually restricted myself from doing interviews because when such questions come now, I'm placed in a situation where I used to speak for the Inec, but I no longer speak for Inec at this moment. So the question you are asking me now, I'm not speaking for Inec. It's good that you say Inec has denied it. I think I read Inec denied that. But yes, you raised an issue. It's a question of, yes, maybe Inec doesn't have a formal official registration center. But again, I'm coming back to institutional problems. Cross-border movements that makes us not to know exactly who is a Nigerian citizen and who actually is entitled to register and things like that, that is still an issue. And I think even the commission has a problem there. Because if people move into a state and then they all come around and they all line up and they probably can call a local government or whatever where they say they come from.
What do you do?
In Nigeria, how do you stop that? Our borders are messed up. They are not only just porous, in fact, they don't exist. I don't know how a country can actually expect to make progress the way Nigeria is working at this point in time. And that's where, if you talk in terms of the synergy of the of the agencies that are supposed to work together, you talk about immigration, you talk about custom, you talk about sundry security agencies and all those things. What do they do about this movement, the movement of Jah people, as somebody will call it, across our border, that you don't know who is who? That places the commission in a very difficult problem. That places the country, not the commission, because that's one of the reasons why we cannot effectively plan and effectively develop on any social development. Because you don't know the population you are dealing with. You don't know how many we are. So as long as you have this movement, it doesn't actually take Inec going to establish a registration center in Niger or Chad. I mean, that will be something else. It doesn't take that, but the people can then come for you to register them here. You don't need to go over there. And we almost agree that these are problems that exist. And that's what our politicians. I think the solution in this thing for the nation beyond the election is there, but the country has refused to address some of these things. There are ways to address some of these things. Maybe if you now, when people go and import people to come and register because you want number, if you also calibrate their taxation in terms of the number they have, then there will also be responsibility that goes also with the benefit that they are getting from this. There are small ways. It's just that, when you look around, you believe that we are not serious in tackling this problem for certain reasons. It's not as if, yes, if people decide to be importing people from across the border, and you know that it is creating problem for you, whether it is in terms of registering voters or in terms of actually planning for your own country, what you are going to do is that every state that allows them to come, the state should also pay taxes also that are commensurate with the number of people they say they have. You cannot actually have 4 million voting population, 2 million adults. That's what it means. Voting population means adults. And then when it comes to you to pay taxes, when it comes to you to bring in a certain revenue into the common purse, you're also going to find yourself going to 1/3 or 1/4 or 1/5 of that. It doesn't make sense. The country is actually playing a prank on itself, in a lot of ways. So we must agree that some of these things are problems, and if they are within a manageable level, we can deal with it. But when you are going to have a deluge in terms of this movement across the border to come and, then that becomes a problem that needs to be addressed. Yes, so basically, the commission cannot actually address that problem on its own. It requires, incidentally, the commission works actually with this consultative commission on election securities, and it involves virtually all the security agencies in the country. And it operates at the highest level, actually with the National Security Advisor and, being part of it and all that. So I think some of these problems can be addressed at that, but is a problem that will be taken to the highest level of the government in terms of talking about the cross-border movement, how it affects our election and how it affects our planning, and all those type of stuff. And then you are going to get the state governments and the state governors actually standing up to do what they ought to do. But what you are getting at the moment is that you find a situation where you have state governments, as it were, in the country, virtually undermining the country, as it were. That's what is happening. And so there is not much that the commission can do to that extent. This one is not a question of are you going to deploy technology in terms of manning security, gadgets on the border. It's not INEC. INEC is not a security agency actually that is supposed to do this. Not immigration. These people ought to do their own and create an environment for the commission to do its work.
Andy, I'm not making you a soothsayer or an ogre. Look at 2023.
Yeah.
We have praised INEC for its performance progressively. Now they are using this biomodal technology that has improved matters.
Yeah.
No more, many of these failures that used to happen with the former technology, they seem to be attending to them. Can you look at 2023 election? How well do you think INEC will fare in handling that election?
The 2023 election, if you ask INEC, I'm sure they will tell you that they are ready, almost ready, and they will perform very well. There are two ways of looking at it. I have no doubt in my mind that when it comes to the things that are within the purview of INEC, that INEC will do well. I have no doubt about that. There's no way they are going to do well, should do well in Ekiti, do well in Anambra, and come to the general. Yes, I agree, that is a larger election. But it is the same technology that is at work. It is the same result viewing portal that have been introduced that will also be at every polling unit where you are going to get your results in real time, promptly. It will be everywhere. What is going to require is bigger budgets, definitely. That's what you're going to have. But it's the same technology and it is going to be at the same performance across the nation at the election. But we are going to have the challenges. Those challenges will not effectively is not going to be entirely INEC's challenge. It will be the challenge of the Nigerian environment pertaining to political parties, pertaining to the ethnicity play in Nigeria, pertaining to all those who are bent because they are pursuing one ambition or the other. They can push the nation into any ditch and they do not care. That's what you are going to get. That's what you normally get in general elections. So when you come to 2023, you are going to have a lot of factors playing that we are not there in a one state like Osun, like in one state like Anambra. Each and every state will be there quite all right. But because the prize is bigger, you are going to have individuals now who don't give a damn. That's what the country has been. All they want to do is that I want to be president or I want to be this or be that. And because of that, anything can give for them to actualize their ambition. Those are the things that heat up the system and makes it very challenging for the commission to play. Then you are going to have the security situation at the moment. How do you handle that? We found ourselves in a situation before where during the last election or the last election but one, we are talking of how do you manage an election with Borno State where you have security challenge and probably one or two other states where you have something like that. Now you're having all over the nation, what are you going to do? So we have a problem that will actually require that we have firm commitment and determination at the highest level in the country to mobilize security agencies, not just to secure the electoral process, but to secure the environment of the country for us to even have the peace to go and have the election. How do you do this in what is going on in Benue every day now? How do you do this in Kaduna State? How do you do this in Niger? So you are going to, you find a situation now where once in a while we throw in another state into the mix and the problem is expanding. So if we are talking of 2023, we are not talking in terms of INEC and the technology and the facilities under the control of INEC to deliver election. We are now talking of an environment in which even individuals will go out to conduct the election. The election staff that are going out, both the ad hoc and the staff of the commission, have you secured them? The commission had always been very hesitant, always very, to the point of letting its staff go into a place where their life is endangered. Do you want to go and conduct the election in a place where, how do you do that? Those are the challenges. Those are the major issues.
Those are the challenges. But somebody says to me, a patriot doesn't fear laying his life down for his nation. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense to me. Let me answer you that way. In the setting in which we exist here, I don't want to be that patriot.
Thank you very much. In the last 25 minutes or thereabout, I've been speaking with Andy Ike Ezeani, former spokesperson for Inec, former press secretary to Inec chairman, former administrative secretary of Inec, Ebonyi State, a Fulbright scholar. We've been looking at Osun State success in the governorship election. How can we expect it to play out in 2023? Andy, I want to thank you for coming to the conversation.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you.